let's start with the biggest deal and one of the most interesting, which sees Norwich City centre-half Ben Godfrey leave for Everton. Transfermarkt reports £24.75 million. If you think you know the fee to be different, then please let me know in the comments. Quote your source as ever. Just remember, sometimes local journalists are briefed by clubs with fees that they want them to print, is all I will say. What we do know, though, is it is a club record signing. The Norwich City website, obviously the deal is going through as undisclosed, which is normally agreed by both clubs, but they can have a little bit of a brag about the fee by saying it's a club record, surpassing the figure that saw James Mattheson depart for Leicester City in the summer of 2018. This is a really interesting transfer, which I have lots and lots of opinions on. The first thing that we should say when we talk about Norwich City and selling players is that we should always give Norwich credit. They get brilliant fees for their players. Very similar to a Brentford. Always seem to hold out for decent fees and get often over and above what the player is worth. If you think back to people like the Murphy brothers, who have not really done a lot since they left in terms of the fees they got for them. Even someone like Alex Pritchard that was signed for a load of money and they still held out and sold for a load of money. So we must always give Norwich credit for getting really good fees for their players. And that, I think, even predates Stuart Webber. They just always seem to have managed to do that in, well, certainly the last, I would say, 5 or 6, 7 years for sure. So this is Ben Godfrey, and this is interesting for any number of reasons. I've been following this player for quite a long time. So he came from York, so he's not one of the homegrown guys at Norwich, although it would be churlish to say that they haven't developed him. They clearly have. So he comes in from York, and then he goes to Shrewsbury on loan and basically plays in midfield for a season, central midfield. I actually was at the, I'll get the year right, Ben, 2017-18 playoff final? Yes, that would have been, wouldn't it? Whereby he's playing in central midfield for Paul Hurst's Shrewsbury with another Norwich player, actually, Carlton Morris. I think he got badly injured in that game. And I was also at Portman Road, where you got this incredible turning point for Norwich and Daniel Farker, where they're playing Ipswich, and Max Aarons and Jamal Lewis play for the first time together, both the fullbacks. And then in the second half, I forget who got injured, maybe Grant Hanley, and Ben Godfrey comes on and plays centre-half. So I was literally there the first time this massively expensive Norwich defence actually appeared competitively on a pitch at championship level together. So we followed with great interest. Now, where people might be a little bit confused is that Godfrey played in the 18-19 Norwich team. Excellent team. Really, really good. But even the most hardened Norwich fans would admit, all-out attack that team. They scored tons of goals. They won lots of games late on. Really good attacking team with Pukki and Buendia and Aarons, particularly down that right-hand side. And again, even the most biased, hardened Norwich fans would say defending wasn't that team's a great suit. Let's just say they were an attacking team. They were great to watch. And in the end, it was Godfrey, Zimmerman, Aarons and Lewis, which makes the bones of this incredibly expensive and highly sought after, and as we can see now, sold back four. Aarons is still there. Give it another couple of weeks, we'll see. But the international window's closed now, and a lot of the interest for him was international. So then Godfrey goes into the Premier League, and again, even the most hardened Norwich fan would admit they were dreadful. Especially at the back as well, leaking silly goals, individual mistakes. I remember Godfrey himself scoring a horrendous own goal towards the end of the season when everything was going wrong. So, we get the question, which is a little bit Mickey-takey, but has some merit. why is a team that didn't really defend in the Championship and couldn't defend in the Premier League selling their defenders for tens and tens of millions of pounds? Well, look, if we answer that question sensibly and not in binary football fan fashion, we know that these players are excellent players. And more often than not, the pattern of play may lead to a team conceding tons and tons of goals. It doesn't necessarily make the players playing in that defence bad players. What I will say is I think that Max Aarons is the best player in that defence. If we include Jamal Lewis as well, who's gone to Newcastle for, we think, £13 million with add-ons. However, centre-halves are always highly valued. English centre-halves are always highly valued. Young English centre-half with Premier League experience. And I think it's potential that you're paying for with someone like Ben Godfrey. And the idea that a great manager like Carlo Ancelotti, surrounded with great players, you've got James Rodriguez there now. You've got Dominic Calvert-Lewin going to score a ton of goals this season. You've got Michael Keane, who's an international, very expensive player. People like Seamus Coleman, who've played for years. Jordan Pickford, I know some people criticise, is the England goalkeeper. So the idea is that perhaps someone like Ben Godfrey might have a better chance of succeeding in an Everton team with those players managed by Carlo Ancelotti than in a Norwich team that, to quote Sporting Director Stuart Webber, were sent to war without a gun and undermanned in the Premier League. So it's an interesting one because we look at it, yes, the Norwich defence was bad. Does that automatically mean that their players playing in the back four were bad? Of course not. Of course it doesn't. And then we look at that transfer record. More than James Maddison. Is Ben Godfrey better than James Maddison? Of course he's not. James Maddison is a supremely excellent English attacking midfield player, and those players are valued at even more. However, look at the context of when Norwich are selling. When Norwich sold James Maddison, who was a brilliant player in the Championship and really propped their team up in that 17-18 season, they did not have the bargaining power that they do now, and they still held out for a good fee, to their credit. Norwich now have come down with parachute money, not having spent a hell of a lot of their £100 million TV money. Obviously, they had previous liabilities and they're at pains, and Norwich fans are at pains to tell me that they're self-funded. Yes, they are. We know that. We understand that. However, Norwich's bargaining position right now when selling Ben Godfrey is far greater than it was when their parachute payments had expired and they were a Championship team and James Maddison had no Premier League experience, albeit Ben Godfrey has a Premier League relegation and a lot of goals conceded on his resume. But you take my point, the bargaining position now is far greater. So hopefully I've gone some way to explaining why a back four that was so bad in the Premier League is still so highly valued. I think it makes sense in some ways, doesn't it? Why he would be more than James Maddison is, a couple, 3 more years of football inflation, Premier League experience, and Norwich's bargaining position is just better. So let's have a look at this. For the player, obviously, it's brilliant. He's gone from York to Norwich. He has played a season with Shrewsbury in League One. He's played a season in the Championship and got promoted. He's played a season in the Premier League that went terribly badly. But for him, it's all worked out fine because he's now gone to an established Premier League club for, decades that look like they might be able to challenge near towards the top of the Premier League. So it's a great move for Ben Godfrey. It's a really good fee for Norwich. For goodness sake, it's a club transfer record. So really the only issue is it a good move for Everton? And we don't know. It just depends whether Ancelotti can mentor Godfrey into what we presume is the potential to be all they want to buy, all anyone in the Premier League wants to buy is a regular Premier League player who can function at that level. Unfortunately, if you want Kevin De Bruyne or Paul Pogba or whoever, Virgil van Dijk, 75 million, 80 million, 100 million. For 25 million, all you want is the player to turn out to be a functioning Premier League player that will either play you a lot of games or that you can sell on for not a loss, basically. So it's a really interesting one. It's going to be our highest fee. I think, I haven't done the research yet, but I would imagine there's only, obviously, Nathan Ake, if that's counting as and Callum Wilson, which are this summer. But then I'm thinking, before that, Sissoko, Pickford, it must be the 4th, 5th, 6th, fact check me in the comments if you want, highest ever player sold from the Championship. So that would be my view on Ben Godfrey. Get your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this clip, why not go and check out the whole video? You can find that and all of my other content at my channel, the Benjamin Bloom Football Channel. And while you're there, why not hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for regular notifications.